My company issued a return to office order. On my first day back, I discovered something horrifying. Nationwide mandatory return to office. The email subject line hit me like a punch to the gut. Of course, there was no return involved, for me at least. I'd been hired pre-pandemic to a fully remote position. I recalled the countless hours I'd spent scouring for such a role and how ecstatic I'd been when I'd been selected for it. The job entailed hard work, but I'd excelled at it, and my husband and I had built our family around the flexibility it offered. Now, my employer had the gall to suggest that its rescission of the promise it had made to me would improve productivity, foster increased collaboration, and instill a sense of family amongst our staff. Nope, and yuck, I thought. The email continued by declaring that true success and experience required a regular presence in the office. It all read like our CEO, in typical form, projecting his own uselessness and impotence onto his employees. I sighed. Why couldn't I, or for that matter anyone else on my team, be dumb, lazy, and short-sighted enough to climb the corporate ladder as high as he had? My husband and I scrambled to make the necessary life changes, as my applications to other jobs went nowhere. Realizing we could no longer give our dog the amount of exercise and attention she needed, we rehomed her to live with my mother-in-law. We staggered our work schedules to permit one of us to drop off our twins at daycare, and the other to pick them up at the end of the day. My husband, who always fought to maintain a positive attitude, reminded me that we were still living a good life in the grand scheme of things, even if we were set to have less time together as a family. I know, I replied. It's just that we all know that these changes aren't happening for good reasons. We're moving backwards, just because the dipshits who run these companies think they're a lot smarter than they really are. I shrugged, feeling defeated and exasperated. But that's just the way it's always been and always going to be, isn't it? Finding a parking space, driving was the only option, due to the lack of public transit, proved nightmarish. For over 20 minutes, I meandered through all 9 floors of the garage searching for an open spot. Finally, I wedged my car into the only gap I could find, which lay between a support column and a truck left sloppily over the line by its driver, and escaped my vehicle by crawling out of the back seat. As I hurried down a staircase and towards the main building, I wondered how anyone who arrived after me would be able to park. I was there relatively early, after all, and I hadn't seen any other available spaces. Passing underneath the giant Abernathy Industries emblem, I entered the main lobby, where a young woman in azure jacket and skirt suit waved to me. "You must be Cora," she said before introducing herself as Monica. "I'm with HR and I'll be showing you the way to your office." "Nice to meet you, Monica," I said. "I believe we've talked by email a few times." Indeed we have. As we shook hands, a bright, beaming smile stretched across her face. "This is such an exciting day for me," she gushed, a tear in her eye. "For all of us, really. You've been a part of this company for years, but now it feels different, like you're finally a part of our family." This took me aback. Naturally, I did not see, and had no desire to ever see, the people I put up with to pay my mortgage, as brothers or sisters, or second cousins twice removed for that matter. So how do I find my office?" I asked, eager to change the subject. "Oh, right," Monica responded, as if snapping out of a trance. "This way." As she led me to the building's main elevator, we passed a set of closed double doors labeled auditorium. "We do big events in there too," Monica explained. "In fact, we'll be doing a welcome celebration for you and all the other former remote workers in there this afternoon. Everyone will be in attendance. We're all so excited for it." Dear God, I thought, reflexively recoiling at the thought of an office social gathering. All I wanted from this company was a fucking paycheck, not a party to honor its latest efforts to torment me. Inside the elevator, Monica pressed the button for 19. This confused me, as my supervisor had emailed me that my team's offices were on the 18th floor. Monica, as if reading my mind, informed me that renovations were occurring in the 18th floor elevator lobby. "So you'll have to go to the 19th floor and then work your way down from there. I'll show you." "Oh, okay," I mumbled, annoyed at the extra time it would take to reach my workspace. The doors opened to reveal a gloomy hallway. Half the overhead lights seemed to be broken, and the other half flickered sporadically over a narrow patch of marble floor surrounded by a sea of carpet patterned in sickly shades of brown, grey, and dark green. "Accounting is that way," said Monica, motioning to the right, "and HR, including my office, is straight ahead, but for now follow me this way through sales." At this, Monica abruptly scurried into the darkness. I called out for her to slow down, but she ignored me. Seeing no other option, I doubled my speed to keep up with her. We passed offices, cubicles, a rundown kitchen, and copy machines. I became disoriented as Monica turned sharply to the left, then to the left again at the next intersection, then right, then left once more. As Monica took me past a corner office, I peeked through the window of its closed door. Inside, I glimpsed a well-dressed figure sitting behind a desk. He was frozen in place, as if deep in thought, and bizarrely his face seemed to have no features at all. No eyes, no nose, no mouth, just smooth skin bereft of any other qualities. That can't be right, I thought to myself as I continued to hurry after Monica. Surely the window was made of frosted glass, or my eyes were playing tricks on me in the low light. Monica's voice emerged from the distant shadows. "You still there, Cora?" Yeah, on my way," I panted as I jogged towards her. Monica proceeded to lead me down a staircase. The floor below was just as gloomy as the floor above, and reaching my cubicle required traversing a maze of narrow corridors. "And here it is, your very own workspace," announced Monica as I examined the small area, which contained only a dingy chair facing a dusty computer on a plain desk. "If you have any concerns, just let me know. Otherwise, I'll be seeing you at the welcoming party later." "Actually, I do have a few questions," I said as I took a seat, "about the lighting and the route we took to get here, and the lack of space in the parking garage, and..." To my surprise, I looked back to find Monica gone. "Monica?" I called. She didn't respond, and when I got up to search for her, she seemed to have vanished. My computer slowly came to life, only to promptly turn itself off moments later. I groaned as the process repeated itself several times before the computer finally stayed on long enough for the login screen to appear. I hastily entered my credentials. My computer's hard drive proceeded to heat up and emit a series of discordant noises, as if my mere act of logging into it was causing it to struggle under an intense strain. How was I going to get anything done with all these delays? If I were using my work laptop, which I'd been required to mail back several days ago, I'd have accomplished a considerable amount already. Finally, after several minutes, everything appeared to have loaded. I opened 2 spreadsheets and was about to start working when an unfamiliar voice startled me. "Cora, so good to see you." I turned to find myself facing a Hispanic woman with long brown hair. Before I could react, she dashed up to me and wrapped her arms around me. Whoa, stop that!" I screamed as I angrily shoved her off me. She backed up, her expression changing to a mixture of puzzlement and concern. "Is something wrong, Cora? Did I surprise you?" "Who are you?" I asked. "What? You know who I am. Don't be silly." No." She let out an irritated sigh. "Look, Cora, I'm not playing whatever game this is. It's me, Ava, your mentor and partner on countless projects, and you know that from the dozens and dozens of video calls we've had together. So why are you pretending not to?" This left me dumbfounded and bewildered. The person she was describing, the Ava I'd worked with for years, simply wasn't the woman standing at the entrance of my cubicle. That Ava, the correct one, was black for starters, had a totally different voice, and was not the kind of person to surprise me with an unsolicited hug. When I didn't respond, I didn't know how to after all, fake Ava chimed in. "It's probably just the lights. They sure keep it dim around here, don't they? But you'll get used to it. When management first removed most of the lights, it upset me. But I adjusted, and it stopped bothering me after a while." She continued, oblivious to the total disinterest I attempted to project. "Less electricity saves money and supports the bottom line after all, and that's what matters most. Anyway, did you hear the latest about Michael? His wife discovered the pictures, the ones with that flight attendant I told you about, and she's furious. Michael, meanwhile, keeps..." As she spoke, my mind tried to wrap itself around what was happening. Who was this person, and why? Was she impersonating Ava? And why was everything at the office so goddamn weird? Anyway, continued fake Ava, after several minutes of monologuing, are you all right, Cora? You look tired. Yeah, I'm just feeling a little run down, I answered truthfully. James and Ella had woken up twice last night. I'd barely gotten any sleep. The twins keeping you up again, she asked. This bothered me. It felt like an invasion of my privacy. How the hell did this lady know about my family situation? I'd vented about family issues to Ava, the real Ava, many times, but this lady had no way of knowing any of that. Look, why don't we talk later? I asked, eager to get rid of her. I need to get back to work. Sure thing, I'll see you soon. Let's grab lunch sometime soon. At that, fake Ava finally left me in peace. I turned back to my computer. I thought about typing up a resignation letter and marching right out, assuming I could even find the building exit at this point. Everything that had happened thus far today left me deeply uncomfortable. I didn't want to work here anymore. Consequences be damned. I opened a blank Word document and began drafting an email to my supervisor, explaining all the reasons why I was providing my 2 weeks' notice. The thoughts I laid out were unfiltered and littered with pejoratives directed at company leadership. I knew I would water it down and clean it up prior to sending it, but for now it felt good to write how I honestly felt. Before long, the words before me blurred together as the combination of minimal lighting and barely 2 hours of sleep sent me into a daze. I'll close my eyes, just for a second, I told myself, as I leaned back and retreated into memories of happier times. I awoke to the sound of a high-pitched whine. At first I assumed it to be the nighttime cry of James or Ella, signifying the need for a diaper change or feeding. But as I regained my senses, I realized that I was still at work, and that I'd somehow managed to fall into a deep sleep in my cubicle's second-rate chair. Frantically, I checked my phone. It was 3:01 p.m. I'd slept nearly all day. I chided myself for letting this happen. I'd never slept at work before, much less for so long. Though, in fairness to me, nearly all the lights were out and the room was almost pitch black. Whatever, I thought. I'd made up my mind to quit this job anyway. Perhaps it was something of a conciliation prize that I'd managed to fall into the deepest nap since I gave birth to the twins on the same day I would provide my 2 weeks' notice. But why was it so damn dark? And what was the distant sound, which continued to wail through my work area, that had woken me? I discerned something strange about my computer too. When I placed my hands on the keyboard, the buttons felt different than usual. They didn't press down or react at all to my touch. When I shined my only source of light, my cell phone's flashlight function, on my computer, I saw that my computer had been replaced by a paper replica of itself, the kind of thing you'd, if you're old enough, see in a display at an office supplies store. What the fuck? I thought. The weirdness of it alone bothered me plenty, but even worse was the implication that someone had switched out my functioning computer while I dozed right in front of it. That's it, I'm getting out of here. The first thing I noticed as I entered the surrounding labyrinth of offices and cubicles is that they all appeared to be unoccupied. My flashlight revealed a few signs of life, a stray pen, a coffee mug, or a half-finished snack, but no people. Picture frames stood on some desks and hung on some walls, but they displayed only blank voids rather than images of smiling families. I tried to retrace the route Monica had taken me on, but quickly found myself at a dead end. "Hello," I hollered. "I'm a bit lost. Can anybody help me?" There was no response. As I wandered further, turning in different directions as I went, it dawned on me that I'd yet to see a single window to the outside world. Even as my surroundings seemed to stretch on unbelievably far, the lack of any glimpse of the sun or sky made me feel claustrophobic. I encountered 2 staircase doors, but in what I assumed to be a serious fire hazard, each was locked. The handle to one of them, marked emergency exit, was even encumbered by layers of heavy metal chains. The sound that woke me reverberated again. I was close to it, and I could now sense that it possessed a hollow, machine-like timbre. Lacking any better ideas, I headed down towards it. The carpeted floor before me was damp. Some kind of puddle had formed on it, and, while I couldn't get a good look at it, the wet substance on it did not appear to be water. Rather, it had a murky, greenish quality to it. Using my flashlight, I traced the liquid to its source, which appeared to be an air vent that steadily dripping a small stream of it onto the ground below. I hopped over puddle, landing near the closed door to the room that appeared to be the source of the sound. When I opened the door, the blinding light inside forced me to shut my eyes. As my vision slowly adjusted, I realized that the sound simply originated from the standard copy machine housed in this room, which appeared to be in the midst of a large printing job. Examining it more closely, I realized that it seemed to be stuck in a peculiar loop. Each page in a large ream of paper entered it on one side, went through the machine and exited without a single marking on it. Once the output tray reached a particular height, the sheets would slide down a ramp into the input tray, repeating the loud and pointless cycle. I placed a finger on the power button and held it there until the machine turned off. An eerie silence followed, broken only by the soft pats of my feet against the carpet as I re-entered the hallway. I walked, trying every door as I did so. Most were locked. Some led to vacant offices, others led to empty closets or break rooms with crumbs and pots half filled with the remnants of last week's coffee. As time passed, the darkness around, me still punctured only by my phone light, seemed to grow more opaque, more encompassing. Occasionally I'd see what looked to be the same supply cabinet filled with purple highlighters, or the same translucent puddle of gunk, or the same cubicle with a running fan and a chair plopped on its side. Hints that I was somehow traveling in a circle, but I took no discernible turns, and the order in which I came upon each landmark was inconsistent. How do I get out of here? I realized I was becoming thirsty, and I knew my phone battery wouldn't last forever. When I tried calling my husband, to be followed if he didn't answer by a call to the front desk and then 911 if necessary, the call failed, despite my phone displaying that it had service. Distant sounds drew my attention. At first, they resembled high-pitched giggles, but as I approached, they erupted into the buoyant laughter of a crowd. How anyone could feel compelled to express any feeling of joy in this hellhole perplexed me, but I attempted to track down the source. All the same, if I just follow the laughter, I'll find someone who can lead me out, I told myself. But deep down, what I wanted most was the simple reassurance that I wasn't stuck here all alone. I ran down hallways. I climbed over cubicle walls. I yanked at stuck doorknobs and stormed from one side of a sticky, dingy kitchen to the exit on the other side. Finally, I found myself in a narrow corridor. At the opposite end, an overhead light blared over an open rectangular space. At least a dozen figures stood in it, but my eyes, having long ago adjusted to the dark, couldn't make out any distinguishing features on them. They just stood there, facing me. Then, all at once, they were gone. Their laughter faded, too, leaving behind only the same sterile silence that had haunted me for so long. Had they run away or gone somewhere else? I chased after them, calling out for help. I found myself in exactly the place I was looking for, an elevator lobby. Contrary to Monica's warning, I see no evidence of renovations. The people assembled here must have just gone downstairs. I didn't ask myself what they were doing standing here and bellowing for so long. I didn't need to know that. I just needed to get the hell out, something I finally had a way to do. Nervously, I held out my hand and prayed that the down button. I held my breath as the floor display slowly reached my level. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. The doors then opened to reveal a clean, well-lit elevator cab. I rushed inside, hit the lobby button, and watched with relief as the doors closed and the elevator began its descent. I tapped my sweaty fingers impatiently against the wall as the floors steadily ticked down. Finally, L appeared, and the doors opened to the main lobby. Only one thing stood between me and the exit, a pale woman with curly red hair, the first person I'd seen in ages, whose face lit up upon seeing me exit the elevator. "Girl, what took you so long?" she hollered in a nauseatingly excited voice. "You almost missed it, come on." I sped past her, my gaze focused on the way out. She moved rapidly, her firm hand grabbing me around the wrist before I could react. I attempted to fling her off, but with surprising force she easily held me in place. Cora, the party's that way, she said, gesturing towards the auditorium with the hand that wasn't restraining me. I know how much you want to get. Home and see the twins, but you have to at least make an appearance. Let me go, I cried. She adopted a deadpan expression. Cora, we're not doing that. First you pretend not to know me. Next you zone out the whole time I'm filling you in about Michael. And now you try to skip your own welcome back party. You and me were like sisters, Cora. What happened to you? My jaw dropped. Was this person also pretending to be Ava? I tried to pull away from her again, only for the second fake Ava to whirl around, restrain me, and with remarkable strength, pull me towards the auditorium. I kept trying to fight her, to pull her off of me, but all succeeded in doing was exhausting myself even further. Some of what followed passed in a blur. I recall Ava, or whatever she was, dragging me past row after row of empty seats, across countless small puddles of rancid goo, and onto a stage covered in banners, streams, and balloons. An unnatural warmth drifting down from the air above, and the sense that I was being watched by something hostile and utterly evil. I remember spotting a loose balloon and watching it as it floated ever so slowly up and above the auditorium stage. With a loud pop, it burst upon making contact with a sight that still horrifies me to this day. An amalgam of body parts stretched across the ceiling. A soup of limbs, torsos, lips, ears, and more than anything, faces. So many faces, all floating in an inverted pool, a hazy green substance occasionally dripping from their pained, open mouths onto the floor below. A plethora of voices, one of which I recognized as Monica's, began speaking. Welcome home. We're happy to have you here with us. We've been waiting for you for so long. I knew you'd make it. I felt paralyzed. For a moment I stood there, speechless and stunned, as the faces, male and female, black and white, young and old, oozed into a new form held together by flabby patches of skin and bent tendons. They combined into a gigantic, monstrous face, with an open, hungry mouth lined by hundreds of lips, filled with teeth composed of thousands of teeth. Out of its mouth slithered a long, slimy organ. It unfurled as it dropped, landing before me, with a wet plop. It was a tongue stitched together from the tongues and various other organs that had once belonged to the marketers, janitors, supervisors, accountants, and secretaries of my company. My captor pushed me closer to it. For a moment, I thought about giving up, about letting the sticky ligament wrap around me and pull me upwards into the gaping mouth. I wondered what it would be like to be digested by that thing, to become a part of it, to become one with everyone else. I imagined it swallowing up my anxieties, my student debt, and my bouts of insomnia, and replacing them with bottomless sleep. The mouth above me emanated several words in a deep, slurred voice, but I wasn't paying attention to it. I knew I had to fight, not just for myself, but also for the twins, my husband, and the life I wanted to live. James and Ella are counting on me, I told myself, as I mustered the kind of strength that courses through an animal protecting its young. It caught fake Ava off guard. At first she managed to keep her grip on me, but the pain from the way I scratched and dug my nails into her arm eventually wore her down. With all my might, I pried her off of me, and without wasting a moment, took the opportunity to run. I remember screaming, loud, even deafening screaming from above, as if every face that made up that creature was shrieking its disapproval. But I didn't look up, nor did I glance back to see if fake Ava was following me. No, all I did was run. I sprinted across the auditorium, through the main lobby and out the front door. I kept going for as long as I could until my feet were blistered and my body could take me no further. I didn't care about my car, which to this day I assume remains where I eived it between the support column and the truck. I just cared about putting as much distance as possible between me and my employer. I still have nightmares about what I saw. More than anything, what frightens me is the knowledge that it's still out there, and that it's still hungry. There was a strange email on my computer the next morning. It was from Monica, and it stated that my resignation email had been accepted. This struck me as weird, as I'd never finished writing, much less sent that email. But I had no reason to pick a fight about it. Monica promised a good severance after all, and even added that I wouldn't have to do anything more to collect it. No paperwork, no projects to finish up. It would be a clean break. Best wishes. To you and your family, she wrote at the end of the message. This made me uncomfortable, though it took me a moment to realize why. Then it dawned on me. It was what the thing, the face on the ceiling, had said to me just as I made my move, to escape. The words I have tried so very, very hard to block out of my mind ever since. Join us, Cora. Come, become a part of our family. My son's eating disorder is getting out of hand. The first time I noticed my son, Theo, was different was when I caught him eating a dead bird he found in our backyard. I pried open his bloody hand and discarded the remains while he sat on the grass, unfazed by my horror. He was 8 and was losing his baby teeth. Kids normally have strange eating habits during this period, but not this strange. My wife and I took him to the pediatrician, who assured us that there was nothing unusual about his development. Every kid expresses this phase differently, the doctor told us. It's just a matter of making him understand what's appropriate and what's not. He'll learn. Well, he didn't, despite our constant reminders of what was food and what wasn't. One day my wife couldn't find him in his room and panicked, searching every corner of the house. She found him in the basement, eating what looked like a dead mouse, his expression blank and innocent. She noticed he was chewing carefully, as if adjusting to the gap left by his missing teeth. A week later it was another bird, this time larger. My wife, ever the optimist, accepted the pediatrician's reasoning and took extra precautions to keep him away from animals. And it worked for a few weeks, but then we got an urgent call from his school asking us to come immediately. When we arrived, they informed us Theo had bitten a classmate's shoulder so hard that he had nearly torn off a strip of flesh. To make matters worse, as the injured child was rushed to the infirmary, Theo remained motionless in his chair, indifferent, licking the blood from his hands. He got suspended until the school knew what to do. This incident left no doubt in my mind. Something was truly wrong with him. My wife now in tears, and I took him straight from school to a series of medical evaluations, from psychiatrists to neurologists. We needed to find out why he was doing those things. I even called the adoption agency that had placed him with, just to check if his file had any listed conditions, but strangely, the number kept returning as non-existent. We stayed at the hospital until late at night, with many of the test results expected the following day. Back home, we didn't even know what to say to Theo. Should he be grounded? Lectured? Medicated? We had no idea. In his room he went to play with his toy cars, appearing every bit the perfect little angel, unaware of any harm caused. His mother made him dinner and put him to bed, and even though he barely ate, his actions seemed just like the sweet and well-mannered boy he had always been. The next morning, I needed to get something done at work, agreeing with my wife that I would return as early as possible to help with Theo. But as I was driving, I got a call from one of the doctors who had examined him the day before. "Sorry to call you this abruptly. Can you talk now?" he asked, his voice concerned. I pulled over and said that I could. "I just sent you an email with the x-ray we took of Theo's face yesterday, and we found something very peculiar," he said, on speakerphone. I opened the file on my phone and scrolled through a few images, not quite understanding what I was seeing. "Look at the second image," he instructed, revealing an x-ray of my son's teeth. He explained most of them were embedded, deep in his gums, unseen from the outside, normal for a child losing baby teeth, except they were far longer than they should be. His developing canines in particular were unusually large, extending high into his upper jaw, resembling something predatory, something inhuman. "You should bring him here now," the doctor warned. "I've gathered several specialists to understand what this is. We've never seen anything like it." I told him I would go right now and rush back home, calling my wife repeatedly, but she never picked up. I burst back through the front door to see a scene I would like to one day be able to erase from my memory. Her body was laid on the living room floor, white as snow. Theo was crouched beside her, his mouth smeared with red. He had bitten into her neck, tearing away a chunk, and was chewing it with the same innocent delight of a child enjoying a crisp apple. Something walks whistling past my house every night at 3:03. Every night, no matter the weather, something walks down our street whistling softly. You can only hear it if you're in the living room or the kitchen when they walk by, and it always starts at exactly 3:03. The sound starts faint, somewhere near the beginning of the lane near the Carson place. We're towards the middle of the street, so the whistling moves past us before fading away in the direction of the cul-de-sac. When I was younger, my sister and I would sneak into the kitchen some nights to listen. Mom and Dad didn't like that, and we'd catch hell if they found us out there. But they were never too hard on us since we always stuck to the one big rule. Don't try to look at whatever was whistling. My neighborhood is a funny place. I've lived here since I was 6 and I love it. The houses are small but well-kept, good-sized yards, plenty of places to roam. There are a lot of other kids here my age. I turned 13 back in October. We grew up together and would always play foursquare in the cul-de-sac or roam around from back porch to back porch in the summer. This was a good place to grow up. I'm old enough to see it. And there's only the two strange things here: the night whistling and the good luck. The whistling never bothered me much. Like I said, I couldn't even hear it from my bedroom. But Mom and Dad don't like talking about it, so I've stopped asking questions. My dad is a strong guy, tall, and calm. He has an accent since he moved to the US as a kid. His family, my grandparents, they're from the islands, that's what they call it. My dad, the only time he isn't so calm is if the whistler comes up. He talks a little quicker then, eyes move faster, and he tells us not to think about it so much and to always remember the one rule, the big rule. Don't try to look outside when the whistler goes past. Not that we could look even if we wanted. See, there are shutters on the inside of every window, thick pieces of heavy canvas that pull down from the top and latch to the bottom of the window frame. Each latch even has a small lock about the size of what you'd find on a diary. My dad locks those shutters every night before we all go to bed and keeps the key in his room. My mom, I don't know what she thinks about the whistling. I've seen her out in the living room before at 3:03 when the sound starts. I could see her if I cracked my door open just an inch to peek. She's not out there often. At least I haven't caught her much, but once or twice a month I think she sits out there on our big red couch just listening. The whistler has the same tune every night. It's cheerful. Da, 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 dum. Da, 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 dum. Remember how I said there are two odd things about where I live? Well, besides our night whistler, everyone in my neighborhood is really lucky. It's hard to explain, and Dad doesn't like us talking about this part much either. But good things just seem to happen to people around here a lot. Usually it's small things, winning a radio contest or getting an unexpected promotion. At work or finding some arrowheads buried in the yard, you know, the authentic kind. The weather is pretty good, and there's no crime, and everybody's gardens bloom extra bright in the fall. A million little blessings, I've heard my mom say about living here. But the main reason we stay here, why we moved here in the first place, is my sister Nola. She was born very sick, something with her lungs. We couldn't even bring her home when she was born, only visit her in the hospital. She was so small, I remember, small even compared to the other babies. A machine had to breathe for her. We moved into our house here to be closer to the hospital. As soon as we moved here, Nola starting getting better. The doctors couldn't figure it out. They chalked it up to whatever they were doing, but we all could tell they were confused. But my parents knew, even I knew, Nola getting better was just another of the million little blessings we got for living in our neighborhood. So that's why we stayed, even after we found out that for every small miracle that happens here every day now and then, some bad things happen. But they only happen if you look for the whistler. See, our neighborhood has a welcoming committee. They show up with macaroni casserole and a gift basket and a manila folder whenever someone new moves in. They're very friendly. 4 people showed up when we moved in 7 years ago. The committee made small talk, gave me a Snickers bar and took turns holding Nola. It was her first week out of the hospital, so they were extra careful. Then the committee asked to speak to my parents in private, so I was sent to my room where I still managed to hear nearly every word. The welcoming committee told my parents about how nice the neighborhood was, really exceptionally, hard to explain kind of nice. Something walks whistling past my house every night at 3:03. Every night, no matter the weather, something walks down our street whistling softly. You can only hear it if you're in the living room or the kitchen when they walk by, and it always starts at exactly 3:03. The sound starts faint, somewhere near the beginning of the lane near the Carson place. We're towards the middle of the street, so the whistling moves past us before fading away in the direction of the cul-de-sac. When I was younger, my sister and I would sneak into the kitchen some nights to listen. Mom and Dad didn't like that, And we'd catch hell if they found us out there. But they were never too hard on us since we always stuck to the one big rule. Don't try to look at whatever was whistling. My neighborhood is a funny place. I've lived here since I was 6 and I love it. The houses are small but well-kept, good-sized yards, plenty of places to roam. There are a lot of other kids here my age. I turned 13 back in October. We grew up together and would always play foursquare in the cul-de-sac or roam around from back porch to back porch in the summer. This was a good place to grow up. I'm old enough to see it. And there's only the two strange things here. The night whistling and the good luck. The whistling never bothered me much. Like I said, I couldn't even hear it from my bedroom. But Mom and Dad don't like talking about it, so I've stopped asking questions. My dad is a strong guy, tall, and calm. He has an accent since he moved to the US as a kid. His family, my grandparents, they're from the islands, that's what they call it. My dad, the only time he isn't so calm is if the whistler comes up. He talks a little quicker then, eyes move faster, and he tells us not to think about it so much and to always remember the one rule, the big rule. Don't try to look outside when the whistler goes past. Not that we could look even if we wanted. See, there are shutters on the inside of every window. Thick pieces of heavy canvas that pull down from the top and latch to the bottom of the window frame. Each latch even has a small lock about the size of what you'd find on a diary. My dad locks those shutters every night before we all go to bed and keeps the key in his room. My mom, I don't know what she thinks about the whistling. I've seen her out in the living room before at 3:03 when the sound starts. I could see her if I cracked my door open just an inch to peek. She's not out there often. At least I haven't caught her much, but once or twice a month I think she sits out there on our big red couch just listening. The whistler has the same tune every night. It's cheerful. Da, 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 dum. Da, 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 doom. Remember how I said there are two odd things about where I live? Well, besides our night whistler, everyone in my neighborhood is really lucky. It's hard to explain, and Dad doesn't like us talking about this part much either. But good things just seem to happen to people around here a lot. Usually it's small things, winning a radio contest or getting an unexpected promotion. At work or finding some arrowheads buried in the yard, you know, the authentic kind. The weather is pretty good, and there's no crime, and everybody's gardens bloom extra bright in the fall. A million little blessings, I've heard my mom say about living here. But the main reason we stay here, why we moved here in the first place, is my sister Nola. She was born very sick, something with her lungs. We couldn't even bring her home when she was born, only visit her in the hospital. She was so small, I remember. Small even compared to the other babies. A machine had to breathe for her. We moved into our house here to be closer to the hospital. As soon as we moved here, Nola starting getting better. The doctors couldn't figure it out. They chalked it up to whatever they were doing, but we all could tell they were confused. But my parents knew, even I knew, Nola getting better was just another of the million little blessings we got for living in our neighborhood. So that's why we stayed, even after we found out that for every small miracle that happens here every day now and then, some bad things happen. But they only happen if you look for the whistler. See, our neighborhood has a welcoming committee. They show up with macaroni casserole and a gift basket and a manila folder whenever someone new moves in. They're very friendly. 4 people showed up when we moved in 7 years ago. The committee made small talk, gave me a Snickers bar and took turns holding Nola. It was her first week out of the hospital, so they were extra careful. Then the committee asked to speak to my parents in private, so I was sent to my room where I still managed to hear nearly every word. The welcoming committee told my parents about how nice the neighborhood was, really exceptionally, hard to explain kind of nice. And then they told my parents about the even harder to explain whistling that tea happened every morning at 3:03 and ended at the tick of 3:05. The group, our new neighbors, warned my parents that the whistling was quiet, would never harm or hurt us, as long as we didn't look for what was making the sound. This part they stressed, and I pushed my ear into the door, straining to hear them. People who went looking for the whistler had their luck change, sometimes tragically. A black cloud would hang over anyone that looked. Anything that could go wrong would. The manila envelope the committee brought over contained newspaper clippings, stories about car crashes and ruined lives, public deaths and freak accidents. Not everyone dies, I heard the head of the committee tell my dad. But the life goes out of them. Even if they live, There's no light in them ever again. No presence. My mom, I could tell she wasn't taking it seriously. She kept asking if this was some prank they play on new neighbors. At one point, my mum got angry, accused the committee of trying to scare us out of our new home, asked them if they were racist on account of my dad being from the islands. My dad calmed her down, told her he could tell our new neighbors were sincere and they were just trying to help us. He explained that he grew up hearing these kinds of stories from his mum and that he knew there were strange things that walked among us. Some of those strange things were good and some were bad, but most were just different. After the committee left, Dad went out to the hardware store, bought the canvas blinds, the latches and the locks, and installed them on every window in the house after dinner. That first night in our new house, I crept out of my room at 3 a.m., only to find my dad awake sitting on the living room couch, holding my baby sister. My dad held up his finger in a shh motion, but patted the couch next to him. I sat and we waited. At exactly 3:03 we heard the whistling. Da-da-da-da-da-dum, da-da-da-da-da-dum. It came and it went just like our neighbors said. The whistling returns each night, and we never look, and we enjoy our million little blessings every day. Nola breathes on her own and she's grown into a strong, clever girl. My dad even joined the welcoming committee. We don't get new neighbors often. Why would anyone want to leave? But when a new family moves in, my dad and the committee bring them macaroni casserole, a gift basket, and the manila folder. I can always tell by the look on my dad's face when he comes back if the family took the committee seriously, or if we'd be getting new neighbors again very soon. Not long ago, a family moved in directly next to us. The previous owner, Ms. Maddie, passed away at age 105. She'd lived a good, long life. Our new neighbors seemed like they'd fit in just fine. They believed the welcoming committee, took my dad's advice about the locking shutters since they had a young child of their own. Whatever newspaper clippings were in that manila envelope, whatever evidence, my dad never let us see. But I imagine it must have been awfully convincing since our neighbors got along with no issues for the first month. One night, when our new neighbors had to leave town, they sent their son Holden to stay with us. He was 12, a year under me in school. I didn't know him well before that night, but as soon as his parents dropped him off after dinner, I could tell it was going to be a bad time. "Do you know who is always out there whistling every night?" Holden asked, the moment the adults left the room. The three of us were sitting in the den, some Disney movie playing idly on the television. My sister and I exchanged a glance. "We don't talk about that," I said. "I think it's that weirdo that lives in the big yellow house on the corner," Holden said. "Mr. Tolles?" my sister asked. "No way, he's really nice." Holden shrugged. "Must be a psycho killer then." Nola tensed. "We don't talk about it," I repeated. "Let's go in my room and play Nintendo." We spent the next few hours playing games, eating popcorn and then watching movies. A typical sleepover, but I could see Holden was getting antsy. After my parents had wished us a good night, locked the blinds and gone to bed, Holden stood up from his beanbag and walked over to where Nola and I were sitting on my bed. "Have you ever even tried looking?" he asked. "It's nearly time. Like most sleepovers, we'd conveniently ignored any suggestion of a bedtime." I was shocked to see he was right. It was almost 3 a.m., I sighed. "We don't, see, I can't even try to look because my dad locks the blinds every night and hides the key," he continued, ignoring me. "So does our dad," said Nola. "No," replied Holden. "No, he doesn't. You saw him do it," I said, a little sharper than I meant to sound. Holden grinned. "Your dad locks the blinds, yeah, but he doesn't hide the key. He keeps it right on his normal keychain." "So?" I asked, worried I already knew what he would say next, because I had noticed that my dad didn't bother hiding the key anymore after all of these years, because he knew we took it seriously. "So, after your dad locked up, but before your parents went to bed, I went to the bathroom, and on my way I may have peeked into their room, and I may have seen your dad's keychain on his nightstand, and I maybe went and borrowed the key to blinds." Nola and I stared, and his grin only grew wider. "You're lying," I said. Holden shrugged. "You can check if you want. Just open your parents' door and look. You'll see his keychain right there on the nightstand." "Stay here," I told both of them. "Don't move a muscle." I hurried over to my parents' room but hesitated at the door. If Holden wasn't lying, my dad would be angry. beyond angry. I was scared thinking about it, but more scared of an open window with the Whistler right outside. I opened the door barely an inch and looked in, but it was too dark to see. Taking a deep breath, I walked into the room. 2 steps into the dark, I froze. The whistling started, and I could hear it clearly from my parents' room. I never realized, but they must have heard the sound every night since we moved into the house. They never told us. I don't think I could have slept through it. I stood there listening to the whistling come closer, unsure whether I should turn on a light or call out for my dad. Soft sounds from the living room brought me back to reality. "Nola!" I yelled. Running out of my parents' room, Holden and Nola were standing near the front door next to a window. Holden wasn't lying. I could see him fumbling with the lock on one of the blinds. I heard a click. He did have the key. Holden let out a quick laugh. Nola stood next to him, hunched up, afraid but maybe curious. The whistling was right outside our house now. I think I made a sound, called out, I can't remember. Time felt frozen, clock hands nailed to the face. But I found myself moving. I'm not fast, I've never been athletic. Somehow, though, I covered the space between myself and Nola in a moment. My eyes were locked on her, but I heard Holden pull the blind all the way down so it could release. I heard the snap of it start to raise, and I heard the whistling just on the other side of the window. But I had my arms around Nola and I turned us, so she was facing away from the window. At the same time, I jammed my eyes shut. The blind whipped open. The whistling stopped. I felt Nola shaking in my arms. "Don't look, okay?" I told her. "Don't turn around." We were positioned so that she was facing back towards the hallway and I was facing the window. My eyes were still closed. I felt her nod into my shoulder. I reached out with the arm not holding Nola and tried to touch Holden. My hand brushed against his arm. He was shaking worse than Nola. "Holden?" I asked. Silence. I reached past him and gingerly felt for the window, eyes still sealed shut. The glass was cold against my fingertips. Colder than it should have been, for the time of year. I moved my hand up the window, searching for the string to the blind. The glass began to get warmer the further I reached, and there was a gentle hum feeding back into my fingertips. I tried not to think about what might be on the other side of the window. Finally, I touched the string and yanked the blinds shut. I opened my eyes. In the dim light leaking out from the kitchen, I could make out Holden, pale and small, staring at the now closed window. "Holden?" I asked again. He turned towards me and he screamed. Everything became a flurry of motion. Lights sparked too. Life in the hall, then the living room. My parents' footsteps thudded across the hardwood floor. I didn't turn to look back at them. My eyes were glued to Holden. He was pale, had bit his lip so hard there was a thin red line of blood running down his chin, and he'd wet himself. "What happened?" my dad asked from behind me. I managed to swivel away from Holden and look back. He looked. I'd never seen my dad scared before, but I saw it that night. In that moment, an old, ugly terror stitched on his face, a parent's fear. "Just Holden?" he mouthed to me. I nodded yes. My dad let out a breath. He looked so relieved I nearly expected him to cheer. But then he turned to Holden and my dad's face changed. I wondered if he felt bad for feeling good that Holden was the only one that looked. There was a knock at the door. We all froze. Holden whimpered. "Don't answer it," my mom said. She stood at the threshold of the hall. I'd always thought she was a skeptic and just humored my doubt about the windows and the Whistler. But that night we were all believers. I noticed that both of my parents held baseball bats they must have taken from their bedroom. The knock came again, a little louder this time. "Please don't open the door," Holden whispered. My dad walked over to him, hugged him close. "We won't," my dad promised, still holding his bat. "Nothing is coming in here tonight." Thud, thud, thud. This time the knocking was loud enough to rattle the door. Holden screamed again and Nola clutched her arms around my neck. My mom came over and knelt down next to us, wrapping my sister and me close. "Thud, thud, thud, call the police," my mom whispered to my dad. The knocking instantly stopped. My dad looked over his shoulder at us. "Do you think—" He was cut off by frantic knocking that trailed off to a polite tap, tap, tap. "Police," something said from the other side of the door. The voice from outside sounded exactly like my mom, like a parrot repeating the words back to her. Police, call the police. Tap, 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 police. My mum pulled us closer. Police, 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 police. Please stop, I heard her whisper. I don't think calling them will help. My dad said, how will we know when they're the ones at the door? The knocking came back harder than before. The door shook. Then it stopped. After a long moment, I heard the knocking again, but it was coming from our back door. We all turned together towards the back door, but the knocking immediately returned to the front door. Front to back to front. Loud, then quiet, then loud again. Suddenly the sound was coming from both doors at once. Big, heavy blows like a sledgehammer. Then something started rapping against all of the windows in the house, then the walls. It was like we were living inside a drum with a dozen people trying to play at once. Or we were a turtle, and something was attempting to claw us out of our shell. Stop! Holden yelled. The knocking died. I won't tell, Holden said, staring at the door. I promise I won't tell anyone what I saw, just please go away. We waited for nearly a minute. Then we heard it. A soft tap, tap, tap coming from the window Holden had looked through earlier. Holden started to cry, sobbing like a prisoner watching gallows being built outside their cell. My dad held him, brushed his hair but never lied to him, never told him things would be okay. The tapping at the window went on for the rest of the night. We huddled together in the living room for I don't know how long. Eventually, my mum tried to take us kids into my room while my dad stayed to watch the door. But the second we moved into my bedroom, the knocking came back. So loud it was possible, but to ignore. I was afraid the door couldn't take it. We went back to the living room and the knocking stopped. Only the tap, tap, tap on the window remained. None of us slept that night. The tapping stopped around 7 a.m. That's about the time the sun comes up here. We waited another 2 hours before my dad opened the blinds from one window. He made us all go back to my parents' bedroom first. I heard him open the door, then come back in. Okay, he told us. Okay. It's done. Holden's parents came back around lunchtime. My mum and dad walked Holden over to his house, and they all went inside for quite a while. Nola and I watched from the window. She stuck to me the whole day, right at my side, sometimes holding my hand. When my parents came back, they looked grim but wouldn't tell us what they said to Holden's family. It was a Sunday, so we all spent the day together, ordered pizza and watched movies. That night everyone slept in my room. Nola and my mum in the bed with me, my dad in a chair he'd pulled over. There was no knocking that night or any night since. We didn't see much of Holden or his parents for the rest of that week, but by Thursday there was a moving truck in their driveway. Nola and I watched them packing up the whole afternoon after school. What sticks with me most is how tired Holden and his parents looked. All three had the same pallor, grim mouths, and lightless eyes. Even from across the street I could tell something was very wrong. Holden and his family were gone before sunset. I remember what the original welcoming committee said to my parents when we moved in. Not everyone who looks at the Whistler dies, but even those that live have the light, go out of them, and the rest of their lives are full of misfortune. A million little tragedies. I think Holden's parents must have looked either to comfort him if they didn't believe, or share the burden if they did. I watch Nola some days, happy and young and alive, and I wonder if I'd been slower. If she'd looked out the window that night, would I have looked too, to comfort her, to share that burden? I'm glad I don't have to find out. We still live in that house, in that neighborhood. We still hear our Whistler walking past every night. The blessings, the luck, the good things here are too good to leave, but we're careful. We don't have friends over to spend the night anymore, and my dad hides the key to the blinds very, very well. Not that I've gone looking. Some things you just don't need to look for. She sold happiness in glass jars. The poster read, "Happiness sold in glass jars, call today." And underneath the text was a phone number. I was walking home from a long, exhausting day of work when I caught a glimpse of the paper stapled on an old telephone pole. I took a picture of it thinking it was amusing. I was going to show my wife once I got to our apartment, but I was caught up with chores and forgot about it. Dinner, dishes, laundry, packing a snack for our daughter, putting her to bed, then putting her toys away that she'd left out in the living room. Every night it was the exact same routine. The next day I awoke sleeping back to back with my wife. I always had to get up earlier than she did for my job, so I quietly got ready for the day and headed out the door. At work, I was updating the company's latest expense report. Most days were similar to this one. They were basically paying me to stare at a computer for 9 hours a day and input a couple numbers into a spreadsheet. I finished my work very quickly, so I decided to head out of the office early. It also helped that it was a Friday and a lot of people leave early at the end of the week. On my walk back, I was thinking of what my life had become. I did this often. I always dreamed of traveling when I was younger. I wanted to drive across the country or solo backpack across Europe. Then I met Kelsey. Don't get me wrong, I loved Kelsey. I mean, I still do. We just don't have that spark anymore. When you meet someone and get in a relationship, whether it's meant to be or not, some of your personal life plans have to be put on hold. And then that relationship turns to marriage, and then you have a baby. Then you have to enroll your daughter in a preschool. Then you have to get a better paying job and work more hours and blah blah blah. I'm not trying to throw a pity party for myself. I'm just saying I wasn't exactly content with where I was in my life. I wouldn't have referred to myself as a happy person. As I took the same route home that I did every day to work and back, I walked by the same poster I had passed the day before. I don't know why, I really don't, but I decided to call the number. I figured it would be some joke. Maybe someone just picks up and says, "I love you," on the other end and hangs up. Or maybe it's a line to a sex worker. I had no idea what to expect. I called. It only rang once before someone picked up. "Hello?" a woman said. Hi, I'm calling about your poster, your ad." "Oh, awesome," she said calmly. "When do you want to pick it up?" Pick? What up? "The jar too," she said, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Oh, of course, I realized then that I had left work early without telling Kelsey, so I could just go pick it up now, and she'd be none the wiser. "What exactly is it that you're selling?" "I just told you, it's happiness, in a glass jar, like the poster said. Happiness keeps best in glass jars. They're more durable than, say, a plastic bag." Okay, should we meet somewhere?" "For sure. I don't want you to end up being a creep or something, so let's go to a public place." The public place we decided on was a Starbucks parking lot, a little over a mile from me. Now, I didn't think I was really going to be buying a jar of happiness or whatever. I was 99% sure she was going to sell me drugs. Maybe heroin would be in the jar. I remember thinking, oh no, a happiness is probably a nickname for some street drug, and I'm going to a drug deal. What if she's a cop? Am I going to be arrested? But something inside me told me to keep walking, and so I did. I stood outside and texted her. Me. "I'm here." Her. "Cool. Be there in a sec." Me. "What are you driving?" Her silver Camry. And as her final text came through, I saw her car pull in. She took a spot not too far from where I stood. I could see there was no one else in the car, which put my kidnapping fear to rest. She opened her door and stood on the pavement, looking around until her eyes met mine. I gave her a little nod of acknowledgement. She simply responded by waving her hand, gesturing for me to come over to her car, so I did. She was young, maybe mid-20s, with curly golden hair. Her skin was pale and contrasted with the all-black outfit she was wearing. I thought she looked like Glinda the Good Witch from The Wizard of Oz had put on the Wicked Witch's clothes. "Nice day out," she said as a greeting. "Oh yeah, it is. Hadn't really paid attention to it." "You were the one that called about the jar, right?" "Yeah, that was me." "Cool, well here you go." She handed me a very small glass mason jar. It couldn't have been more than 2 inches tall. Inside of it was a light. Not a light bulb, just light. It was like someone bottled up sunshine. It glowed even in the mid-afternoon daylight. It looked like a tiny sun or a tiny universe existing in this little crystal-walled home. I was admiring it with no attempt to hide the awe on my face. "Pretty rad, isn't it?" What is it?" "You've asked that like 3 different times, I think." My answer is still the same. It is happiness. Happiness in a glass jar. "What do I do with it?" "Keep it," she said simply. "If you have any problems, shoot me a text." She started to get into her car. "Wait," I said. "I thought you were selling this? How much is it?" "Don't worry, man," she said with a smile. "You'll pay." She closed her door and I stepped out of her way as she backed up, then drove off. What the hell had just happened? What was I holding? I looked down at the jar again. Its radiance was simply mesmerizing. I put it in my pocket and could see its glow slightly through my pants. I began to walk home. What was just a nice, sunny Day quickly changed into a rainy one with clouds wrapping the sky. It was not forecasted that it would rain, or else I would have ridden the bus or subway to work that day. I jogged home trying not to get too drenched. I finally found shelter. Once I made it to my apartment building, I walked up to my door and found that my key wasn't on my key ring anymore. Shit, I can't believe I lost it again, I thought. I knocked on the door and said in a somewhat loud voice, "Hey babe, it's me. I don't know what happened to my key." I heard the door being unlocked from the other side. When the door opened, I was greeted by a large, heavy-set man with greasy hair and unkempt goatee. He said, "I think you got the wrong door, bud." "Oh," I said, disoriented. "My bad, sorry, have a good one." He let out a chuckle as he closed the door. "Apartment number 33. I know that was my apartment. I know it was. I'd been in apartment 33 for 5 years now, but that was not my apartment. From what I could see inside, all the furniture was different. It was painted a different color. It was all wrong. I felt like I'd hit my head and was drugged. In that moment, nothing made sense. I pulled out my phone to call Kelsey so she could calm me down and tell me I just got confused for a second. But her contact wasn't in my phone. In fact, nothing was in my phone. I had no messages with her. No previous calls. No pictures. It was like my phone reset to its factory settings. Did that girl somehow switch my phone out when I wasn't looking? I would have just dialed Kelsey's number manually, but I couldn't quite remember it. I had known it by heart before, but not anymore. I needed to get back to the office. I had all my contacts backed up on my work computer. Since it was still raining, I hopped on the bus, which had a stop right in front of the apartment complex. I rode downtown toward my office, the whole time staring at my wet shoes, wondering what the hell was going on. We have a keycard access to our building, so only authorized personnel can get inside. I always keep my access card in my wallet, always. But surprise, surprise, it wasn't there. I buzzed into the speaker we had for guests with appointments or employees as a backup in case anyone lost or forgot their card. Bezez. "Hey, this is Tim. I must have lost my card. My employee number is..." I stopped as I drew a blank. A voice came through the speaker. "Tim, you got cut out. What's your employee number?" I can't remember. That's fine. Just tell me your full name and department." Finance. I'm in finance. My full name is Tim Brooks." "One sec." About 30 seconds later, the man spoke to me again. "We don't have a Tim Brooks working in this building. Did you have an appointment with someone?" I backed up in surprise, almost tripping on my own feet. I had just been in that office an hour or two ago. What was happening to me? I felt like I was getting Alzheimer's, but going through every stage in one day. I stared at my hands, unsure if I was in the right body. I felt like the world around me was disintegrating. I wasn't in control. I was merely sitting inside somebody else's head, watching the world through their eyes. Then I got a text. I recognized the number immediately. It was that girl, the one who gave me the jar. I had forgotten all about it until I saw her text. Her. "Hey, how's it going?" I looked at my phone, dumbfounded. It made me angry she was so nonchalant about this. She knew what was going on. She had done this somehow. Me, what the hell did you do to me? Her. The worst is yet to come. I was astronomically close to just chucking my phone as far as I could in frustration. I took the jar out of my pocket. It looked unchanged, still glowing just as bright. "What the fuck did you do?" I yelled at the jar, realizing I probably looked like a lunatic. As I stared at its glistening glass, I realized something. I didn't know what my wife's face looked like anymore. I knew her name. Well, I know it started with a K or maybe a C. I couldn't picture her in my mind. I knew I had a wife. I knew I did. Yes, because I had a daughter. I had a wife and a daughter. I just couldn't remember their faces then, or their names, or their birthdays, or any memories I had with them. I know they existed. They did exist. I had just seen them that morning, right? I couldn't remember how she looked or what she smelled like. What was our first date? We had a wedding, right? What about our first kiss? Or my daughter? Or was it my son? Maybe I didn't even have a kid. But my wife or girlfriend, she was real. I knew she was. The thought was tearing me apart. I couldn't see her in my head. I couldn't recall a single fact about her. I was standing outside of the same building, but I was unsure why I was. Did I work there? I must work somewhere. The rain was accompanied by a chilly wind now. It was whipping at my face, making my nose and cheeks sting. I wanted to go home. I wanted to be with her. I wanted to be warm. I wanted to go into a shitty office job that kept a roof over my head. I wanted it all. I was soaking wet. I was miserable. I couldn't remember my parents or my childhood. Did I even have any friends? Why was I in the rain? I looked down at my hand. I was still clutching the jar. The only memory of my entire life I could concretely remember was that girl giving it to me, telling me it was happiness. It did not bring happiness. It brought pain. It brought suffering. I was more miserable in that moment than I'd ever been. My phone buzzed. "Break the jar, Tim." I looked at my other hand. With the setting sun and the rainy sky, I swear the jar glowed brighter than any streetlight near me. I didn't break it, because I was following her instruction. I broke it because I was angry. I broke it because I was upset. I needed a release. I raised my arm above my head and brought it down with one swift motion, shattering the jar on the concrete beneath my feet. That dark, chilly air accompanying the rain spread away like it was the shockwave of a bomb going off, and I was at the epicenter. I saw the warm yellow light from inside the jar spread rapidly across the ground and ascend into the sky. It was as if I was watching the beginnings of the universe being created, like God had just snapped his fingers and said, "Let there be light." I was engulfed in it. I could no longer see street or rain or anything dark. I felt like I was plummeting into a star going faster than the speed of light. It felt like sitting in front of a fire on a cold winter's night, but that warmth was covering every inch my body. And then I blinked. Immediately, I could feel the sheets beneath me, and my back barely touching my wife's. I was staring out the window. The morning light drenched through the glass and gleamed on my face. I stood from bed and grabbed my phone. It was Friday morning. I had one text. "Let me know if you ever need another jar." I called in sick to work. I snuck into my daughter's room and greeted her with a kiss and told her she didn't have to go to preschool today. We were going to have a family day. She smiled and stretched out her arms with a yawn before curling up and falling back asleep. I got back in bed and squeezed my wife tightly. I didn't let go for hours. Our daughter came into our room and woke us up eventually. She was jumping on the bed and shouting for us to wake up. Yesterday I may have found that annoying. Yesterday I may have found a lot of things annoying or monotonous or dull, but not today. Today I pulled her under the covers in between me and Kelsey. Today was going to be a good day. Today I was happy.